Question number 1, is Lansing Station Road and Bill George Road in Tier 1 or Tier 2?
Tier 2.
Tier 2.
Lansing Station Road, Bill George Road are in Tier 2. Second question. I think this says average cost of water and sewer for a single house on the lake. So what is the average cost of sewer and water for a house on the lake?
Depends on the location of the house.
Depends on the location. Are you talking about a house that's on the lake that's already in an existing water district? Or are you talking about a Ladoga property?
That's in Tier 2, right? If a house is in Tier 2, you can figure out what the ad valorem charge would be per 100,000. So that would be for the sewer. And I would assume if you have water, you know what that bill is already. If you don't have water, there would be no charge. Yep.
What's the difference between Tier 1 and Tier 2? Because it's not written out here clearly. Is Tier 2 anybody outside of the water district, of the sewer district?
Yes.
It's all of the properties that are not in a sewer improvement area, and at this point, there would be 3 sewer improvement areas. One's the existing Warren Road Sewer District, the second is the existing Cherry Road Sewer District, and the third would be this proposed South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area. So everybody else would be Tier 2.
No, if it's a question, some of them aren't questions or comments. That's
Okay,
all.
so if I'm reading these and I'm not going to read them if they're comments. You can save the comments for the public hearings. And we will appreciate your comments when the timing is right. Will there be an annual charge if there is no hookup?
If you're in a Tier 1 sewer improvement area, there will be an annual charge. It will be to help support the cost of the long-term indebtedness and also to help support the capital fund for replacement of worn-out parts. You would not be charged for the actual wastewater treatment, however, if you're not contributing your sewage to a treatment plant.
If a property is outside the district, does the property have to pay anyway? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you're Tier 2, so you're outside the original initial sewer improvement area, you're part of Tier 2, that would be the $23.65 per 100,000 of assessed value.
Right.
Yep.
When can the initial plant, 150,000 GPD, be expanded to serve additional areas beyond South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area?
It'll be an obvious duty of the town board to understand what the capacity of the treatment plant is, and there's continual reporting that's done to the state on the performance and the hydraulic loading. So there'll be a time, probably, I would guess, when the plant's at 80 to 85, maybe 90% of its capacity, that the board will have to decide, is there a need and a way to finance the cost of an expansion. As I mentioned previously, the type of system that's being proposed for the plant can easily be expanded in a modular fashion. But there will obviously be a threshold that the town board will have to consider and decide, is it appropriate to now plan for additional capacity? And it will be based on the need of the community.
Something that's very interesting about this is there generally, other than we have the $2.5 million grant, as a rule, there's no money available, no grants available to establish new municipal sewer plants. But if you already have a plant, and I'll point to Groton as one, if you already have a plant, getting grants to increase capacity or to modernize your plant are much easier to get. They are available. And that's because they want existing plants, obviously, to function at their highest level, and if they need to be expanded, there is money out there. So if we have a plant already, we can go out and apply for grants to expand the capacity, or, you know, if better technology comes along to implement that.
Since the Warren Road Warren Road Sewer District is included in Tier 1, are these properties also charged Village of Lansing transmission and Village of Cuba Heights treatment costs?
Yes, they are. And the difference between the South Lansing Sewer Improvement Area and the other two areas with respect to treatment is that they will continue to convey their sewage to the Village of Cuba Heights wastewater treatment plant. And all of that sewage that leaves the south end of the town goes through the Village of Lansing. So there are transmission charges and there are treatment charges of the two villages, Village of Cuba Heights and Village of Lansing. And you'll find, if you scrutinize the engineer's report, those costs are laid out for you. And they're reflected in the numbers that I previously quoted of being roughly in the $500 range of total costs for a single-family home connected to either South Lansing or any of the other two sewer improvement areas.
What would prevent a group of property owners in Tier 2, say on Swayze Road or Ludlowville Road, from banding together to demand a sewer district extension similar to the way we now extend water districts for municipal water?
How the sewer district would be, how sewer districts would be expanded would be up to the town board. And it makes sense, I think of it as a ripple effect, to do the core district and then to move out like this. It's the most equitable way to do it, and I imagine that's what we'll be doing. One of the things you want to do is bring sewer to the most densely populated areas first, and then to move out that way. So I think that's how it will be done. We have in the making a water committee, what is it called? Water district committee? Water advisory committee, and we thought if we have sewer, we'll combine them both, and they will be a water and sewer advisory committee, and they'll look into these things and they will advise the board, and it will also be made up of residents. Will be on the board. They will advise the board what district should go and which shouldn't.
What is the path of line from the pump station to Portland Point Road? Through Cargill along Lakeshore Road? Question mark.
Is that it?
Well, I think they aptly described where the route is. It's going to be along Lakeshore Road to a point where, in working with Cargill, we can accommodate an easement for the permanent force main that will ultimately run up towards Portland Point and connect into the gravity sewer that will run the full length of Portland Point Road. So it'll be probably parallel outside of the railroad right-of-way, but parallel to the railroad right-of-way to a point where we can then run up the hill on Cargill's property in a location that doesn't upset their operations.
What will development zoning be in the sewer area? Would 1 acre zoning be reduced to 1/4 of an acre, such as for townhouses and multifamily?
That's sort of
I'm not sure about the answer.
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that would depend on what planning and zoning changes would occur as a result of updating the comprehensive plan to accommodate for sewer, and what type of development and what type of development density the town would want in the sewered areas. So the answer is yes, 1/4 acre lots could be permitted there if that's where best planning or the citizens want that type of a development to occur. It could be mixed-use development, it could be commercial. Sewer gives you a lot of flexibility to go in any direction on that, but whatever does happen would be a result of an actual zoning change, which would be driven by the current comprehensive plan that is now being updated.
We were promised that only properties in Tier 1 would pay for sewer. Explain the reasons for the change in taxing philosophy. I don't think anything was ever promised. I think if you're talking about the previous sewer district that went back into the early, well, from 96 or 97 through the early to mid, actually it was later than the mid 2000s. It was about 2009, 10, when that proposed sewer district just kind of fell apart. The 12C, Article 12C that was described is basically the approach that the town board, with recommendations from the sewer committee, has decided to go in that direction. So if you're talking about a promise that was made, it must go back to the previous, one of the previous 3 or 4 sewer district proposals.
About a year ago, there was a big presentation.
We never promised that. What I will tell you is,
Maybe
promise is the wrong word. Well, that's how it started out. I'll be very honest with you. It started out that just the first district was going to pay for it. And what happened was, when you look at that, the cost to that district would basically be way too high. So when we looked at this and we started talking about it, 12C means that it's whole town outside of the village, so the village wouldn't pay for this. We realized that the entire town can benefit from having sewer. One of the reasons is if we can get some light industry in here and we can get assessment to go up. I'm not saying it will reduce school taxes, but maybe it will keep them down so that they won't rise as fast. So that was one of the things we thought. We can also maybe bring some services to people in town, some municipal service or doctors' offices, that type, the things that people put when they filled out, when we did the town center plan and people said they'd like to, we have a market now, they said they'd like to see a doctor's office, they'd like to see a daycare center, they'd like to see a bakery. There's a long list of things people in town thought that they would like to have. This could be accomplished with sewer. Without sewer, it's not impossible, but it would be much more difficult to do. So we felt there were a lot of pluses for everybody, and not just the people in the sewer district. And so we thought maybe it would be a good idea to look into this and see how it brought the cost down for those in Tier 1. And as you can see, in Tier 1, I'm not really sure what the cost was before we did this, but it was much higher than it is now. And the cost for Tier 2 is, as you can see, is $23.65 per 100,000. So just figure out what your house is worth and figure it at $23.65 per 100,000, and that's what you would be paying.
And how often is that adjusted?
Hopefully it will stay that way for a long time. That's the plan at this point.
If it would decrease as the assessment rolls in Tier 2 increase. In other words, as the roll grows larger, that cost will go down. Not maybe significant, but as you noticed in our chart there that we had, it went like from 24 to 23 cents to 23 to 22. So as the rolls grow in Tier 2, that would reduce that cost.
What are the exempt properties in Tier 2?
Churches, right?
Some properties are wholly exempt, and those are customarily or not-for-profits, cemeteries, churches, other not-for-profit organizations. Obviously, there's ag exemption, and there's a lot of land in Tier 2 that currently qualifies or has ag exemption. We have an opportunity, I think, ultimately to get some input and clarification on that for you folks, perhaps at a public hearing from the County Assessment Department. And if there are specific questions, perhaps at that time of specific properties, we can clarify whether or not you currently have an exemption and how it might affect your charges, principally in Tier 2. There would not be such exclusions and exemptions for properties in Tier 1 that actually do receive the sewer benefit by being able to connect to it.
I don't think you can pass that down to Guy. I don't think we can. Just pass it to him. Because we did think of that.
Who owns the land where the treatment plant is going, and what price is the land? Who are the owners of the pump area?
There he is. The land is owned by Cargill, and Cargill has generously decided to donate the land to us, so we will not have to pay for it. Otherwise, we would have to find a place. The original plan, actually, when we first started this, was to put it somewhere where we would have to purchase the land. But Cargill has agreed to let us put the plant on their property, and they will, what do you call it?
Donate?
Donate or turn it over to us when the time is right.
Is that true of the pump station in Myers also?
We own that property at the pump station. The town actually owns that property. Yeah, we don't have to buy it. We have it already.
How many documented septics have failed in the last 10 years in this area?
Well, I actually asked the health department if they would give me a list of the septics that had failed, and they said it would take a long time, and that was about 6 months ago. So someone suggested to me, and I didn't want to do this, but I guess I will because I think people really want to know, and that is I'll foil it. Now that puts them in a pretty awkward position because they have just a certain amount of time to get back to me, although they'll probably say that it's such a big thing that it'll take us 6 months to do. But it was suggested to me that I foil this information because we have contacted them and said, do you have this? Are you working on it? And I think one of the reasons is because the records are not necessarily, they're not digital, so they have to go through them manually and find them. And I don't think they want to do that. I can tell you that on Myers Road this year there have been 2 new septics installed, just in the past few months.
Why aren't all Lansing residents paying equally if the school and the prisons are the biggest problem?
Give that back to her. She's not going to understand. There is an answer to that.
Well, Tier 1 is a benefit area that will get sewer. They will be the first tier that gets sewer. So they're paying 40 or they're paying 60%. As you become part of Tier 1, as we expand sewer and you're now in Tier 1 and not Tier 2, the costs will go up. Tier 2 will not get sewer until we expand into Tier 2. So that was the reasoning. Tier 1 gets more service.
But if people in Tier 1 don't ever want to be part of this, they're still having to pay for them
Yes.
for the rest of the time they're in the property.
Yes. And I will say this, if we have sewer and your septic fails, the health department will tell you you have to hook on to sewer. You can't just put in a new septic tank. They will tell you you have to hook on. Which in the end, if you figure how much you pay per year, would be cheaper than laying out a certain amount all at once.
But you're going to have to pay almost $4,000 to hook up to it, according to the packet that was sent out.
If you read it, it's about $20 a foot to your house, and about so it depends on how far back your house is, and then about $500 to retire your tank. And retiring a tank means they pump it out, they take the top off, they fill it with gravel. They don't take it out. That would be a really big procedure. So basically, it's just, it's put to sleep, if you will. They don't, and then they finish it off with topsoil and grass. So it's still there, it's just not functional.
Are construction costs figured at the prevailing wage, or are they figured at normal hour rate?
They're done by whoever the, actually we got 3 estimates from, what are they called?
Local contractor.
Local contractors. So I don't know how they figure there, but that's what the local contractors told, and all 3 said the same thing. $20 per foot, and that includes the pipe. So it depends on how far you have to go from your house to the main line.
I think to clarify, if you contract with an excavator to put your lateral in, you can use anybody you like.
Yeah.
And what their rates are is between you and the contractor. With respect to the bigger project, however, it is a public works project, and those are prevailing wage rates.
Good to go.
Yep, good to go.
If you're so sure this will promote development, why isn't there any private money being invested? Guy?
Well, there's a couple answers to that. One is this has been looked at a number of different times and by more than one town board as to what kind of creative financing scheme can we come up with. And the local finance law, which governs all municipalities and the entirety of all state agencies and public authorities, specifies very limited ways and exclusive ways by which towns may raise revenues to pay for things. They include little used and not well-known things like TANs, tax anticipation notes, and revenue anticipation notes to bonds, bond anticipation notes. Those are the types of debts the town can have. So a town couldn't, for example, build a public works project based upon lending from a private individual. Now, if a private individual wanted to make a gift, which, by the way, under the Internal Revenue Code would be tax deductible, to the town of Lansing for whatever, well, it is, but for whatever purpose, whether it was to support the arts or whether it was to make handicap accessibility in some area of the park, or whether it was to support the sewer, you can designate what the purpose of that gift is, and in that circumstance, either an unrestricted gift the town could assign to the sewer, or somebody could make a gift specifically to the sewer, and as a gift the town could use that. The problem, of course, is that the question presupposes that it would be the private developer making the gift, and therefore it also may be presupposing that they get something in exchange for that, and that would be prohibited. You can't buy your planning board approval by making a gift. So that's sort of the answer. Yes, private money could come into it if it was a gift and it was unrestricted in terms of it doesn't have to be paid back, but to the extent that it has to be paid back, it can only be a type of facility that is approved by the local finance law.
This is a question for the engineer. If the pump in Myers fails, what will prevent a basement from filling with effluent?
Well, first of all, there are check valves that are in line that would at least prevent someone else's sewage from coming back into your basement. If your pump fails, there will be alarms. There'll be an audible and a visual alarm, and they'll be required for each of those sewage pump station packages. And when the water reaches a certain level within that wet well, it'll set off an alarm. It'll be before it gets to the elevation of backing up into your building. But you'll have a little bit of time to make a call and find out what's wrong with your pump. Pull it, replace it. The town will have in stock some replacement pumps that can be interchanged with what you'll have in your wet well. So I expect that you won't have backups unless your water is running, your toilet's leaking, and you've gone away on vacation for a week. In which case you want to make sure you turn off the water to the toilets.
We have a pump in our house, and we had a failure which resulted in sluggish toilets. And my husband was smart enough that he knew right away to go out and check, and there's a light in the pump in the house where the pump is, and in fact the pump had burned out. We had to replace it, but nothing happened. Nothing backed up into the house. We found it really quickly. I will say one of the local excavators came out, pulled the pump, and put a new one in that day, which was really great, so we weren't without toilets for days on end, other than the cost. But it wasn't, it wasn't devastating.
Why has this proposal been changed since the last sewer project was declined by New York State?
It wasn't, was it?
When they wanted it to be
I don't believe the project wasn't declined by New York State. It came before the town board. It was never even voted on because the price was so high. and I believe it was over $800.
Way over.
I've looked at some of the past, I've read a lot of the past reports. In the past, the price has been anywhere from $800 to $1,100. So this is the lowest it's ever been. The comptroller has a level at which they will come out or which they will look at your plan and decide whether or not they'll let you do it if it's too expensive. Last year it was $816 to trigger a comptroller's review, and I'm not sure what it is this year.
It's less.
It's less this year. So less would, again, trigger a comptroller's review. That's only a review. If they think you really need it, they'll say, yeah, go ahead. That's even though it's higher than our numbers, they'll let you do it. Auburn, for instance, I believe last fall their number was a little over $900, and they went through with it.
Assumed growth cannot be counted on. Also, increased growth equals increased costs. Please show tax revenues with no growth. So, Tom?
If we go back to the chart I had, if you look at the line without sewer, that's no growth right there. And those are the projections in the year 15-16. It looks like the school taxes I estimate to be $25 a thousand. And year 3, it's $26.03. Year 5, which would be 2019, year 2020, $27.24. And then year 10, almost $30.50. That's with no growth.
What percent of the total cost is being passed through the LCS budget and Gossett Center budget?
Read the question again.
Yeah.
What percent of the total cost is being passed through the Lansing Central School District budget? And then in parentheses it says, and the Gossett Center budget.
Dave's got the numbers.
Can we hold that, and I'll look it up and come
Sure.
back to it? Can I have the card? I'll write it
Yeah,
down on there.
let me ask the other questions on here. Why was the area of Horvath and Asbury Drive, small lots with high density, left out?
Do you want to? We did look into that, and Dave can give you the answer for that.
There certainly are pockets of development, principally residential development, that you all know about that have occurred for the last 20, 30, 40 years. And the committee did look at how could we incrementally extend sewers to pick up some of those neighborhoods without raising the cost per equivalent dwelling unit. And what we found is that it's very difficult to get out to some of those neighborhoods from the system that's being proposed. Not to say that there can't be other extensions in the future, but at present, with what the town was pursuing as a skeleton of their sewer system, we can't get to Horvath and Asbury without creating a lot of additional expense that would drive that $475 for a single family even higher. It's not to say that it can't happen in time. I think it's an expectation that there can be savings, there can be creation of capital reserve funds that could support planned growth and extension of the sewer system, but we have to start somewhere, and what's been proposed is what the committee and board feels is practical and reasonable at this time.
I'm going to go with the next question while you look that
Yeah.
other one up. Does the capital debt charge included in Tier 1 charge end when the low-interest loan is paid off in 30 years? The answer to that is
Yes.
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 When the loan is paid off, that part of the expense goes away. Does the town maintain the wet wells and grinder pumps on individual properties?
Maintenance of laterals, gravity laterals, and the pump chambers and wet well would be the responsibility of each individual landowner. I have suggested that because we need consistency in the design of the force main systems, that the wet well and pump station package be consistent from one neighbor to the next, and that the town have replacement parts so that if there is an issue, the landowner can come to the town, get the replacement equipment, it drops right in, you plug it in, you go. But the expense of making those repairs would be at the homeowner's charge.
Is there a lifespan for the pump?
Well, I imagine a lot of you folks, if you have a more recent septic system, you may have a pump already, an effluent pump as part of your sewage system. The pumps that the town's looking at are more robust than what's customary in an individual septic system. We expect that they could go anywhere from 8 to 15 years would be the useful life of these municipal pumps. A lot will depend on what you run through the pipes. If naturally, if things go down the pipe that you wouldn't customarily put in your on-site septic system, then you'll probably have a shorter pump life.
Is there a source of low-interest loans for homeowners to hook up? For example, they're asking about federal or
Yes.
state funds.
Yeah, those are, yes, there are, and we would look into those for people that would qualify. The town would help them qualify for those.
Where can I direct questions after this meeting? Well, pending it being over before midnight, you can ask them after the official meeting is over, or you can feel free to come to the town hall, and Kathy or I will help you. If we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you.
You can also email.
Or you could email questions. If you have access to the town's website, you'll find links to our email addresses, links to contact the engineer, the town attorney. Sewer committee members are listed on the town's website. Okay. Are there any plans for expansion? I think we've kind of answered that question.
Yeah. At this point, do we have specific plans for expansion? No. Do we anticipate expansion? Yes.
Why leave out Ludlowville? Dense housing and poor septic systems, much flow to Salmon Creek.
Answered that question, Dave. Oh, Noel Desch was the one that answered it.
Yeah, why leave out Ludlowville? Cost.
Cost. Yeah, but to get the infrastructure. in
Well,
place.
again, there's need to start with something. I'll use the analogy to water. It was acknowledged that providing public water to Ludlowville was the quickest way of solving any imminent health threat from the cluster of septic systems. And it took a long time to leapfrog, if you will, out to Ludlowville, but it did happen. Again, the skeleton of the sewer system that's proposed through the South Lansing area will be there to allow those extensions to happen. And if there are circumstances that would allow the town to apply for assistance, grants, or other low-interest loans to help facilitate that, there's something here to connect to. And so, again, it's a matter of starting with a core and building your way out where the need is justified and the demand exists.
And I think when Dave and I went up to talk to the DEC this fall, they asked us specifically about Ludlowville. So it's kind of on their radar screen, so we're hoping that going out, once we get if we do get the septic system or the septic plant up and running, that would probably be one of the first things that we would go out and apply for grants and see if we could get money to bring septic service to Ludlowville. Because, as I said, they're kind of like on a watch list, and something like that is more apt to get grant money than a lot of other things.
If the money from each source, Tier 1, Tier 2, and the grant, doesn't add up to the total cost of the sewer, who pays the difference?
It will add up.
It will add up to the cost.
We won't make it add up. The website shows what the fee would be for my property in Tier 2, but my property includes farmland. Is the farmland subject to the 1/3 unit per acre?
I think that depends on if you have the ag exemption, am I right there?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
And again, we could tell from
Yeah, if, again, there's, several of us will have these spreadsheets of all the Tier 1 and Tier 2 estimated charges for you if you want to come up and verify your particular property. And again, I think if there are landowners that do have predominantly ag activity on their Tier 2 lands or are ag exempt, let's all double check and make sure that you're either getting the reduced or the full exemption. And again, the county assessment will have to work hand in hand with the town every year to understand those ag exempt properties.
How does having public sewer promote new small business?
Well, we've already lost out on a couple small businesses because we didn't have sewer because they needed sewer to operate. That's how.
Wouldn't the availability of public sewer increase the value of farmland, putting more pressure on farmers to sell ag land for development?
I don't know why unless the sewer was out there.
Would it be possible to incorporate natural, sorry. Would it be possible to incorporate natural gas expansion along with the sewer construction? Would including natural gas lines be a way to subsidize the cost of the sewer?
Hasn't been explored.
Hasn't
been
we haven't even
explored.
thought of that, no, quite frankly.
Do you care to generate methane? We can do that.
What benefits should Tier 2 property owners anticipate compared to Lansing property owners outside Tier 1 and 2 areas that justify their contribution to the sewer system debt service in addition to their Lansing town and school taxes?
Well, one of the things would be a stabilization to the tax base, and also an increase in the tax base. Obviously, if we get some small businesses, their assessments are higher than residential, so that would increase assessments. And that would mean that, you know, if there's a bigger tax base, then the rate wouldn't have to go up as much. And I hope everybody understands rate and tax and assessments and that type of thing. If not, we should have a little tutorial of that in the town hall. The other thing is bringing some amenities to town for sure. I suppose if you don't really care, then it's nothing for you. But if you really want some of these things that we could bring to town, then that's definitely a plus. I'd like to also say to you that people think of development and they go, oh, well, if we don't have sewer, we're not going to have development. Oh, no, even if we don't have sewer, we're going to have development. We already have developers who have said that they will develop and put in their own little septic systems. Now, the problem with that is they build, they develop, they put in these little systems, and they go away. And they do have homeowners associations that are supposed to pay for these. But when the highway department gets a call because one of those systems is not working, are we going to let those people have a problem while we're trying to locate whoever it is that's in charge of this? My guess is, the way Lansing is, no, we will try and help them. Because it would be a mess, quite frankly. So, right now we are talking to 2 developers who have said that they will go ahead with development even if we don't have sewer. I would much rather see them go ahead with sewer than without sewer because I think it will be, in the long run, it will be a headache to the town if they do that. But we also, if the DEC approves their plants, we can't stop them.
Are there people within the Tier 1 that have spoken up and said they want sewer? Not
Yes.
not
Yes.
residents.
Yes.
Yeah, there has been.
Yes.
A significant
A
number.
significant number.
72.4.
Significant.
Yes, you'll find out in August.
If the cost for sewer is based on gallons of water usage, how is this fair for people who use lots of water outside for car washing, garden, and pool fill?
It doesn't go through the system.
Oh, if I don't use so much water. I mean, it's the same thing with Bolton Point. Whether or not you're using the water for domestic reasons, or you're washing your car, or you're watering your lawn, they charge you for it. And I suppose if you could set up 2 meters, and 1 meter you just used in your home and the other you used to water your lawn, that might be an idea of separating the two. Otherwise, how do you separate the two? I don't know, unless you had 2 meters. But Bolton would still charge you for both meters, whatever you use total.
Is it 3% each roughly?
What about expanding the sewer to areas not included in this plan? We've kind of touched on that.
That's tier 2.
Will projected costs be different for veterans or senior citizens?
This is what the schools and DEC
Okay.
Okay,
state pay.
I don't know about veterans. Do they have a special?
not on special district.
No, not on, generally the veterans, Cold War exemptions and other exemptions for seniors don't touch special benefit districts or improvement area costs. But for those that are in tier 2, yes, there probably would be a reduction because your taxable property value is reduced, I believe. I don't know, I'd have to look that up.
Is that for star exemption or something like that? Would that be?
Again, off the top of
We'd
my
have to
head,
look into it. I
I'd
don't
have to
really
look
know the
that up.
answer to that. We'll look it up.
No.
No effect.
What was the question?
Okay, no effect.
How does an LLC vote?
1 vote.
One vote.
The LLC would get 1 vote, and whoever the appointed manager or members elected to cast the vote for the LLC, that's how it would be, that's how the vote would be cast.
Another question with the LLC, what if you have an LLC and you lost the resident?
You get to vote.
The vote will go to whoever is listed as the owner of the real property on the last official completed assessment roll. So if the LLC owns a piece of property and you as a resident are a member of the LLC and you also independently own property, then you would vote once as a property owner, and you would be part of the vote once as an LLC because the LLC is a separate legal entity.
Question about costs. What is the guarantee that these costs will not double or triple as history of development has shown us over and over again?
Well, I think the only thing, we would take out a loan, and we have basically a payment plan, so it's like anything. If you buy a car, why doesn't your car double after 5 years, or after 2 years, and you still have 2 more years to go? It's a loan. It's like a mortgage. It's not a balloon mortgage. We would tie in at a certain interest rate, and we would pay that out. The only thing that could possibly increase might be O&M, if there would be a reason for that to happen.
And we've projected in some increased cost.
Oh, cost overruns on the original project?
We got a contingency in.
There's a contingency fund in the proposal for that purpose. Right, Dave?
Guaranteed by the contract.
Well, first of all, you wouldn't accept the bid.
We would, yeah.
The town would go through a public bidding process for the construction of all the improvements. And at the time of the bid opening, if the town learns that the total costs would exceed what's been approved by the public, then they would not accept the bids. They would either have to find a way to reduce the scope of the work or rebid it in hopes of getting a more competitive price, but the town would not accept bids if it was going to automatically put the project in exceedance of the total amount that's been approved to spend.
Yeah, just like any.
Wouldn't development reduce the farmland areas rather than benefit farms?
That's kind of the whole idea, is to keep development out of farmland, to keep it away from farmland, so that we can develop more. Right now, people have to buy, if you need water and you need sewer, you have to have a certain amount of land. And so what people are doing is they're buying a little further out in order to have that much land. If you don't need that, you can build closer into the center of town or into some areas where, for instance, I live in an area where I think they buy 1 point something acres because there's no water and there's no sewer. Now they could develop much more densely there if they had water and sewer. And the good thing about it is we're not near farmland. What?
40,000 feet is
The size of a lot, right?
9/10 of an acre.
Right. So part of this is actually, one of the reasons to do this is to preserve farmland and not to see it broken off in little bits.
How long will we be paying for this and not be using it in Tier 2 areas? Is it ongoing forever once it's built?
30 years is the debt
30 years.
30 years. That's when it's paid off. And if you don't have sewer by then in Tier 2, you wouldn't be paying anything.
When more sewer, sorry? You wanted to say something? No?
You said that you hope this brought in a lot of small businesses and stuff. You make some kind of promise if we bring in these small businesses, we're not going to get tax abatements and everything else, so they're still not paying anything?
No, because the IDA gives them a program, but, you know, they're taking a chance by coming in too. And they're not only going to bring in taxes, they'll bring in jobs. And maybe you don't need jobs, but we have children, quite frankly, that do need jobs, and it would be very nice to have them here in Lansing.
When more sewer, oops, hold on here. Did I already read that? Okay. When more sewer users come online via development, will our costs, principal and interest plus usage, go down? If so, by exactly how much? Ooh, I don't have a crystal ball.
Would you read that again?
When more sewer users come online via development, will our costs for principal and interest and usage go down? If so, by exactly how much?
Well, by exactly how much we can't say. One of the things we could do, and we're looking into, is holding things steady. And as more people come on, we could sock some of that money away in a reserve fund so that we can expand sewer and not charge people for expansion. Because here's the thing, here's how I look at it. If people come on and we lower your rates overall, and then we expand the district and everybody has to pay for that, then we'd have to raise your rates again. And then if more people come on, we'd lower them again. And then if we wanted to expand, we would raise them again. So you would have this undulating, rising and lowering of the rate. If you keep it steady, and we can sock some of that money away, as much as we do with the consolidated water districts, then what you can do is use that money to expand sewer service.
What happens when I can't afford the cost of infrastructure to hook my home up to the sewer? I have a small home with just me living in it. Why should I pay as much as a McMansion with 5 occupants?
Well, that's one of the areas where we would go out to look for grants, HUD grants, and what have you, to help you hook up. And they did that with water too, I believe, didn't they?
Better Homes has money.
Better Homes,
Better
yeah.
Homes.
And
So the grant,
HUD grants.
HUD grants, right.
How much will it cost a homeowner to hook up to the system, i.e. physical infrastructure from building to system?
It's in
That was on one of those slides, right?
It's in the slide here.
Well, within the slides and also within the engineer's report, you'll see some quotes, and the conventional gravity connection, assuming I think roughly 150 feet of 4-inch lateral, came out to about $3,800. And as I mentioned before, the costs for someone who requires a grinder pump and wet well assembly is going to be significantly higher, closer to $10,700.
The pumps are for people that are below grade?
Pumps will be for those properties out in the town that we can't physically extend a gravity sewer pipe to serve them. And they're, right now, those areas, Ladoga Park and some of the properties, residential and commercial and even town park property in the Myers neighborhood.
What's the estimated annual maintenance cost of this infrastructure? Again, I think that was on.
For individual?
Well, I don't know. I guess, yeah, is it a question of individual responsibility?
Or total?
Or system-wide responsibility?
I don't know. Annual estimated maintenance cost of
I would think
infrastructure.
individual would be
Probably of
the,
the system.
Yeah. What, so you got an O&M cost?
Well-
It's the O&M, Dave.
The costs for maintenance and repair of the collection systems, whether you're South Lansing or Warren Road, Cherry Road, it'll be incorporated into the $45 per unit
Yeah.
charge. So it'll be $45 per year per equivalent dwelling unit for upkeep of the collection system.
I've heard that the system is high pressure. Is this true?
is it high pressure? No. Is the system high pressure? That's what someone said they've heard the system is high pressure.
Is it true?
High pressure. Well, if it's gravity, it's little pressure, and if you're on the low pressure force main system down in Ladoga, it is just that. It's low pressure. It's not. You're not developing very real large pressures from the pumps in order to move your effluent into the town's pump station. There will be. The town's pump station does have to lift sewage from the location at the bottom of Myers Road up to Portland Point Road, so that will be a higher pressure force main system, but nobody's physically connected to that. That is simply a transmission force pipe from Myers up to Portland Point.
What happens if my home is downhill from the proposed pipe run?
Got to have a pump.
Yeah, it'll be wet well and pump assembly. Now, I think there's a caveat to that. As I mentioned previously, in the design of the system, there will be an effort to marry up the understanding of your existing septic system with the topographic survey, so that to the extent possible we can provide everybody, or as many people as possible, with gravity connections. That's the purpose, and that's something that was similarly done in the recent Warren Road project.
Approximately how many developers and large landowners will benefit from the new system?
Well, you got that. I think you got to talk about your land across the road.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That's.
I suppose anyone that has a large tract of land that they would want to develop could benefit if they were along that particular, if they were along the sewer benefit area, could benefit from the town hall, the town lands, which is 154 acres. If development occurred there, of course, they would benefit from sewer. And I will say we have RFPs out for development on that land. And if we get any RFPs in, we will have them available for everybody to see. We will do things like have meetings for people to look at what has been proposed and see if the town is interested in it. So as far as the number of developers, I don't know. There's people around here with land along the sewer, I know that. No. No, they're not in at all. Nope. And they don't pay taxes. Yep, I wish they would sell.
Are any of the sewer fees tax deductible, either state or federal?
Yes, the Tier 2, that's an ad valorem tax, so it's a property tax, and it's, if you itemize on your federal income tax, I'm not a tax accountant or a tax lawyer, but the way I understand ad valorem taxes, they are an itemized deduction both on your state and your federal tax, if you itemize. But again, you'd have to check for sure with your accountant or your tax attorney, but everything I've been told about it, it is a tax deduction, if you itemize.